Hello, movie and TV fans. I am the movie guru, and today we will be talking with the executive producer, Frank Doelger, of the upcoming CW show, The Swarm.
They thought I was just being curious until it started to get aggressive.
You're saying an orca did this?
It looks like you've stumbled on a new strain of bacterium.
It looks like something growing into the brain tissue.
It's in the water system.
Hold him down!
There have been other people infected. None of them survived.
I saw a shadow, and then it went down, disappeared.
I don't know how fast it's spreading.
Saving the world is every billionaire's favorite pastime.
They say we know more about space than the oceans.
Premiering on Tuesday, September 12th at 9 p.m. on the CW. How are you, Frank?
I'm very well, thank you. Nice to be with you.
Now, The Swarm is a German-produced science fiction television show based on the novel of the same name. Now, the series depicts the struggle of humankind against an unknown swarm that lives in the depths of the sea. And right off the bat, this is my type of show.
Good. I'm glad we found something that intrigues you.
Now, the bio also says, after years of unrestrained pollution and relentless climate change, a mysterious force starts using the creatures as hostile hosts to declare war on humanity. And so before we get into The Swarm, I want to ask you a question. Producing a show like this, are you scared to go into the water?
You know, I've been scared to go in the water ever since I saw Jaws. So for me, this is just a continuation of the same fear that comes and goes. And of course, you know, when I started the project, there wasn't much in the news about orcas attacking ships. There wasn't quite as much about shark attacks. In the last couple of years, they've really been mounting. So yeah, so I think twice before I jump in.
Yeah, no, I agree. Jaws was never the same. And then, of course, the other movie, Orca, you know, which was very similar to the Jaws theme, you know, really did it for me. I believe I stayed away from SeaWorld for a while after that, you know.
I think a lot of people did.
Now, I watched the first episode, and one thing I noticed was great character building. You know, I really felt, you know, you can get to know the characters as the story unfolds. And we know that it was based on a book. So briefly, how does the series and book sort of differ, or how are they the same?
There's quite a big difference. The novel was written 20 years ago, and at the time it was written, all the main characters are essentially white men, and they're also pretty world-class, big world-class scientists. So we made two decisions, one of which was to make them younger, more women, more people from diverse backgrounds. And also, I'm not really interested in heroes who act heroically. I'm interested in characters, people who become heroes. So by making them graduate students, people interested in the sciences, but just starting out in their careers, we thought it was a much more interesting way to go. And of course, always adding more women to the cast adds another dimension, which I think makes it very contemporary and hopefully will widen the appeal.
I definitely think you captured that. That was one of the first thing I noticed, was just how diverse the cast was. And you know, for someone who is a professional or works around professionals, you understand the journey that they have, meaning they're into this, they're learning, they're making mistakes, and then they get faced with a task and they rise. And you can follow each of those phases, and that's what I saw myself doing with the cast in the show.
Great. No, I'm glad you picked up on that, because again, I think that, you know, when you're dealing with a show that depends a lot on science and you really want to make it understandable, the idea of having people who know a little bit but not too much so they can discuss it, they can ask questions, that just makes it a little bit easier to explain things rather than you have a lot of world-class scientists who already know all the answers to everything.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I want to ask you another question. Have you had any animal encounters at sea or anything similar? Not like the show, of course, but just anything that's like make a great story.
The only thing I can remember from my own experience was, I think I must have been 4 or 5, and I was walking on a beach, and there were a flock of geese by the edge of the water. And I, like most 4 or 5-year-olds boys, decided it'd be fun to throw stones. So I was throwing some rocks at these geese, and they turned on me. And I distinctly remember tripping on the sand, having a goose come up my back and bite the back of my neck.
Oh.
I learned very quickly that to stay away from swarms of animals and to treat them with a bit more respect.
Right. You never know what they'll do, right?
Exactly.
I went to Hawaii, and me and my wife, we swam with the dolphins, and the personality that they have is really uncanny, and how they respond and interact, and it's really like they almost talk.
Yes, I've heard that from friends of mine who say they can't believe the connection you have between the animals. And I think there are certain people who feel that. And I think part of the show also, I think a couple of our characters really had that sense of they understand, they could get inside the animals' minds and thoughts. And that's something else we were playing with, that there are people like that. And I think that's why they were good characters for the series as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, talking about some of your other projects, I saw in your bio that you did some work with the Game of Thrones. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I was with Game of Thrones for 8 years, from the first episode to the last. And that was interesting. And that was very interesting in terms of actually approaching the swarm, because one of the challenges on Game of Thrones was to get the balance between the characters and the surreal fantasy horror elements correct. And I know that it really was a struggle for us to make sure that we got that right. And I think ultimately it was the characters and how they sat in that environment and how they react to the events that really made that show work. So going to the swarm, I'm really glad you commented on the characters, because I wanted to make sure that we did the same thing, gave the audience characters with whom they can engage, and then add the surreal fantasy elements to that. So that was a very good lesson, and something that I probably will keep in mind if I do other shows like this in this genre.
Okay. Yeah, that's great to hear. I want to say I was with Game of Thrones for 8 years as well, every episode, twice. So we were all right there with you. But it's great to meet someone from that production, because it definitely changed a lot in movies and film. And I definitely like what you're doing with the Swarm. And so you commented on horror in the show. So is it a horror series or more of a mystery thriller type of drama, would you say?
We set out to make a monster movie. And we really wanted to do is, you think of a classic monster movie, there's something out there, you're not sure what it is, the characters are trying to figure it out, they can tell what it's doing, you've got to figure out what it is, what it's doing before you can confront it. And that pretty much was the way you approach this. This is a monster that you can't see. It's there, you sense that it's doing things. So that, and the other thing I liked was the idea of doing a monster movie when ultimately at the end, you realize the monster is us.
Wow.
We're the ones that created the monster. We're the ones that are making the monster do what it was. And so it was a way of holding a mirror up to ourselves and saying, okay, who is the real monster? Is it this force in the ocean that's trying to survive? Or is it all of us who have made it act in self-defense and do things it probably wouldn't normally do?
Wow. I love a good creature feature. And one of my favorite films was actually a series. It was a 1998 miniseries called The Creature. And it was adapted from a 1994 novel White Shark by Jaws author Peter Benchley. And I kind of got some of those same type of vibes from the series. And that's why I said really, really took my attention when I saw the first episode and read the bio on the show. You seeing the season, what surprises or mysteries can you sort of talk about with the Swarm, or what should audience members be on the lookout for?
I think what they should be on the lookout for is all the things that we're doing, that we've done, and wondering really how those have contributed to the story. Also, I think that, this is ultimately a story about the degradation, the state of the climate. And I think all of us felt that there's so many dramas out there that are really make you feel hopeless. It makes you feel like the damage is done. There's nothing we can do. And I think it was important to us. We wanted to end on a note of hope. There's a character who says very clearly, if the oceans die, we die. Mm-hmm. I think people need to realize that, but also hopefully they'll realize it's not too late. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping they'll be entertained. I'm hoping they'll think a little bit about their own behavior, but also maybe just wonder, is it too late, or do we still have a chance to undo some of the damage we've done? Those are all the things I'm hoping that people will think about and discover as the characters ask those questions and discover those issues.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. That was very great information. And everyone watching, The Swarm premieres on Tuesday, September 12th on the CW. Frank, thank you for your time. It was great talking to you, and I look forward to seeing the rest of what The Swarm is bringing to television.
Thank you for your interest, and I hope you enjoy it. Take care.
Take care. Bye.